Archangel Michael says, "Heaven has been fighting for you in ways you cannot see." Beloved, I need to tell you something today that is going to permanently change the way you understand everything that has been happening in your life. Not just the victories. Not just the moments when things went the way you hoped. But the ordinary days. The difficult chapters. The seasons that felt like nothing was happening. The moments when you felt most alone in what you were carrying. Every single one of those moments had something in common that you could not see from the inside of them. Heaven was fighting for you. Not watching. Not observing from a comfortable distance and occasionally sending an encouraging thought your direction. Fighting. Actively. Strategically. Persistently. With the full force of divine authority directed at everything that was trying to reach you that was not supposed to reach you. Archangel Michael says, "Beloved, I have been in the fight." Not as a figure of speech. As the literal reality of what has been happening in the spirit realm on your behalf throughout every season of your life. The attacks that were formed in darkness against your future. The strategies that were designed to stop you before you reached your purpose. The weapons that were aimed at your peace and your faith and your relationships and your health and your calling. I have been engaged with all of it. On your behalf. By the assignment of the God who made you. And the reason you are here today. Still believing. Still carrying what you carry. Still pressing toward what you were always made for. Is not only because of your own resilience. It is because you have not been fighting alone. You have never been fighting alone. Tap the like button right now if you believe that the battles of your life have never been yours alone to fight. Because that is the truth this message is going to establish in you today with a depth that changes how you approach every future challenge. And drop a comment below and type "Heaven fights for me" if you receive this word that the fight you are in has never been a fight you were ever meant to fight without the full support of heaven behind you. Just those 4 words. Heaven fights for me. Because declaring what is true about who is in your corner is one of the most powerful things you can do. What heaven has been fighting against on your behalf. Beloved, Archangel Michael says the first thing he wants to do is pull back the curtain on what heaven has been fighting against on your behalf. Because understanding the opposition that was intercepted before it reached you is going to produce a gratitude and a faith that changes the posture from which you face everything that comes next. The first thing heaven has been fighting against on your behalf is attacks against your identity. Beloved, the enemy's primary assignment against your life has always been the assignment against your sense of who you are. Because a person who does not know who they are cannot walk in what they were made to do. And so the attacks against your identity have been the most sustained and the most sophisticated of all the attacks against your life. The voices that said you are not enough. The wounds that whispered you are defined by what happened to you rather than by what God says about you. The comparison that made someone else's strengths feel like evidence of your inadequacy. All of it was a coordinated attack against the identity that God established over your life before you were born. And heaven has been fighting against it. Not every lie got through. Many were intercepted before they could take root. And the ones that got through were addressed by a truth that arrived at exactly the right moment to counter what the lie was trying to establish. Heaven has been in the fight for your identity throughout every season of your life. The second thing heaven has been fighting against is attacks against your faith. Beloved, faith is the mechanism through which you receive everything God has prepared for you. The enemy knows this. Which is why the attacks against your faith have been among the most relentless and the most patient strategies against your life. The disappointments that were timed to arrive at your most vulnerable moments. The silences that were amplified to feel like abandonment. The gaps between what was promised and what had arrived that were used as evidence against the reliability of the promise. The voices that said your specific situation is the exception to every principle you have believed. Heaven has been fighting all of it. Not every attack on your faith landed. Many were deflected. And the faith that you carry today, tested and proven and real, is partly the result of a fight that heaven has been engaged in on your behalf throughout every season that tried to take it from you. The third thing heaven has been fighting against is attacks against your relationships. Beloved, no one fulfills their purpose alone. The relationships God places in your life are essential to your calling. And the enemy knows this, which is why his strategies against purpose almost always include an attack on the relationships that make purpose possible. The misunderstandings that were engineered to divide. The offenses that were manufactured to fracture. The isolation that was designed to separate you from the people who strengthen you. The mistrust that was planted in relationships that were supposed to be sources of support. Heaven has been fighting against all of it. Not every attack on your relationship succeeded. Many were intercepted before they could do irreparable damage. The relationships that survived the most sophisticated attacks against them survived not only because of the love and the forgiveness of the people in them, because heaven was fighting for what those relationships were designed to produce. The fourth thing heaven has been fighting against is attacks against your health. Beloved, the body through which your purpose is expressed has been a target. The enemy knows that a physically depleted or emotionally exhausted or mentally overwhelmed person operates below the capacity that their calling requires. And so the attacks against your health have been strategic. Not random illness. Targeted pressure against the physical and emotional and mental systems that sustain the life that was designed to carry something significant. Heaven has been fighting those attacks. The ones that did not reach you. The near misses that felt like luck but were not. The moments when your body should have broken under the sustained pressure but did not. The recoveries that were faster than they should have been. All of it has had a dimension of heavenly intervention that you could not see from the natural side of what was happening. The fifth thing heaven has been fighting against is attacks against your finances. Beloved, the financial attacks that have been part of the strategy against your life were not designed simply to cause material hardship. They were designed to keep you focused on survival rather than on assignment. To consume the energy and the attention and the creative capacity that was supposed to go toward purpose with the immediate and relentless demand of unmet material needs. To create a scarcity mindset that made generous giving feel impossible and therefore cut off the seed that would have produced the harvest. Heaven has been fighting those financial attacks. Some of them never reached the level they were designed to reach because they were intercepted. The provision that arrived from unexpected directions. The needs that were met in ways that had no natural explanation. The financial crises that resolved in ways you did not strategize. All of it had a dimension of heavenly fighting on your behalf. The sixth thing heaven has been fighting against is attacks against your calling. Beloved, this is the primary target of everything else that was sent against your life. The enemy attacked your identity to undermine your sense of being called. He attacked your faith to erode the conviction that the calling was real. He attacked your relationships to remove the support that the calling requires. He attacked your health to reduce the capacity that the calling demands. He attacked your finances to reduce the resources that the calling needs. All of it was in service of the ultimate goal, preventing the calling from being fulfilled. And heaven has been fighting against this ultimate goal throughout every season of your life, with every tool available to divine authority. And the calling is still active, still real, still being worked toward, still being developed in you, still approaching its fullest expression. Because heaven has been fighting to keep it alive through every strategy that was designed to end it. And the seventh thing heaven has been fighting against is the premature ending of your story. Beloved, this is the most personal dimension of the fight. There were moments in your life when things were moving toward endings that were not the endings God had written for that chapter. Relationships that were heading toward permanent fracture. Health situations that were trending in the wrong direction. Faith that was approaching the point of permanent dissolution. Purpose that was being buried under the weight of accumulated discouragement. Moments when what was coming would have permanently altered what comes next. And in every one of those moments heaven intervened. Not always visibly. Sometimes through a person who said exactly the right thing. Sometimes through a circumstance that shifted at exactly the right time. Sometimes through a peace that settled that had no natural explanation. But always with the intention of keeping the story going. Because the ending God has written for your story is not a premature one. And heaven has been fighting to make sure you reach the ending He intended. Beloved, right here I want you to drop a comment and tell me one moment in your life when you felt like something was fighting for you even though you could not explain what it was. Just one moment. Because naming the moment is recognizing the fight. And recognizing the fight is the beginning of the gratitude that the fight deserves. Comment below what heaven has been fighting for on your behalf. Beloved, Archangel Michael says that understanding what heaven has been fighting against is powerful. But understanding what heaven has been fighting for is equally important. Because the fight is not only defensive, it is also offensive. Heaven has not only been blocking what was coming against you, it has been actively pursuing what God always intended for your life. And there are 7 specific things that heaven has been fighting for on your behalf. The first thing heaven has been fighting for is your destiny. Beloved, before you were born, God wrote something over your life. He established a calling, a purpose, a specific contribution that only you were designed to make. And everything in the spirit realm that has been working against you has been working against that destiny. And everything in the spirit realm that has been working for you has been working to preserve and develop and eventually deploy that destiny. Heaven has been fighting for the fulfillment of what God wrote over your name before the world knew your face. And the fight has been sustained. And it has been winning. Because the calling is still active. The destiny is still being approached. And the God who established it is committed to seeing it fulfilled. The second thing heaven has been fighting for is your faith. Beloved, faith is not only something that is attacked. It is something that is cultivated. And heaven has been actively working to grow your faith throughout every season. Sending words that arrived at the right moment to strengthen what the attack was trying to weaken. Arranging testimonies that provided evidence of God's faithfulness at the moments when your own faith was thinning. Engineering encounters with the truth that countered the lies that were being used against your faith. Sending people who spoke into your life with a precision that had no natural explanation. Heaven has been actively fighting for the growth and the development and the strengthening of your faith. And the faith you carry today is partly the fruit of that fight. The third thing heaven has been fighting for is your joy. Beloved, joy is one of the primary targets of the enemy because the joy of the Lord is your strength. And heaven has been actively working to restore and to protect and to increase the joy in your life throughout every season. Sending moments of unexpected delight in the middle of difficult chapters. Arranging the arrival of beauty in the places you most needed it. Engineering the timing of encouragements to coincide with the moments when the joy was at its lowest. Providing the specific experiences of God's goodness that kept the capacity for joy alive even in the seasons when joy was hardest to find. Heaven has been fighting for your joy. The fourth thing heaven has been fighting for is your peace. Beloved, peace is another primary target because a person whose peace is intact is a person who makes clear-headed decisions from a stable foundation. And heaven has been actively working to protect and to restore your peace throughout every season. The unexplained peace that settled in the middle of a crisis. The calm that arrived when the situation argued strongly for anxiety. The settled knowing that everything was going to be all right that had no natural basis. All of it was heaven fighting for your peace. Actively. Persistently. In the specific moments when the enemy was working hardest to steal it. The fifth thing heaven has been fighting for is your relationships. Beloved, heaven has not only been fighting against the attacks on your relationships. It has been actively working to bring the right relationships into your life and to deepen and to protect the ones that are part of God's design for your purpose. The person who arrived at the right moment with the right word. The connection that formed in an unexpected context that turned out to be exactly what the season required. The reconciliation that happened in a relationship that seemed beyond restoration. The community that formed around you in a season when isolation seemed to be winning. Heaven has been fighting for your relationships actively. Positioning people. Arranging encounters. Creating the conditions in which the right connections could form and flourish. The sixth thing heaven has been fighting for is your healing. Beloved, heaven has been actively working toward your wholeness throughout every season. Not just physical wholeness. The healing of the wounds that produced the patterns. The restoration of the places in your identity that false voices distorted. The mending of the relational tears that the attacks produced. The renewal of the faith that the testing thinned. The healing of the grief that was never fully processed. Heaven has been fighting for your healing. Actively. On multiple fronts simultaneously. With the specific intention that the person who arrives at the next season of your life is more whole than the person who navigated the current one. And the seventh thing heaven has been fighting for is you. Beloved, ultimately the fight is not abstract. It is not for a concept or a purpose or a destiny. It is for you. The specific person you are. The one with the complicated history and the unresolved questions and the imperfect faith and the genuine love for God and the persistent commitment to keep going. Heaven has been fighting for you. Because God loves you. And what God loves He fights for. With the full authority of everything He is and everything He commands. The fight has been for you, beloved. The whole time. From the beginning. And it is still going. And it will not stop until the day you step into the fullness of everything that was always being fought for on your behalf. Beloved, I need to pause here. Someone is going to find this message today who has been feeling like they were in the fight alone. Who has been exhausted by the weight of what they have been carrying without knowing that heaven was carrying it with them. And this word is going to reach them because someone like you gave today. Scan the QR code on your screen right now or use the link in the description below. $5 or $10 or $25 or $50 or $100. Give what God is putting on your heart. And when you give, say out loud, I am sending this word to the next person who needs to know that heaven is fighting for them. Because that is exactly what you are doing. How to partner with what heaven is fighting for. Beloved, Archangel Michael says that the fight heaven is engaged in on your behalf is most effective when you are actively partnering with it rather than passively receiving it. And there are 7 specific ways you can partner with what heaven is doing on your behalf right now. The first way is pray as though the fight is real. Beloved, prayer is not only communication with God. It is participation in the fight. When you pray, you are joining the battle that heaven is fighting on your behalf. Your prayers enforce in the natural realm what heaven is doing in the spirit realm. They give the fight a voice in your circumstances. They create an atmosphere in your life that makes the enemy's strategies less effective and heaven's strategies more effective. Pray with the conviction of someone who knows that heaven is fighting. Not the hopeful prayer of someone who is uncertain whether anything is happening. The confident prayer of someone who knows they are not alone in what they are facing. The second way is declare what is true in the face of what the enemy is saying. Beloved, declaration is a weapon. When you speak the truth about who you are and what God has said and what heaven is doing, you are wielding something in the spiritual atmosphere that the enemy cannot ignore. The declaration that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. The declaration that greater is He who is in me than he who is in the world. The declaration that God is fighting for me and I need only to be still. These declarations are not religious formulas. They are the activation of the authority that belongs to a person who is in covenant with the God who fights on their behalf. The third way is give generously as and act of trust. Beloved, generosity is one of the most powerful partnership postures available to someone who knows that heaven is fighting for them. Because generosity says, I am not operating from scarcity. I trust the God who provides. I trust the God who fights for what I need. And the generosity that flows from that trust creates a spiritual atmosphere that the enemy has great difficulty operating in. Give, beloved, from what you have, as an act of trust in the God who is fighting for what you need. The fourth way is worship in the middle of the fight. Beloved, Paul and Silas worshipped at midnight in prison. And the chains fell and the doors opened. Worship in the middle of the fight is one of the most disorienting things you can do to the enemy's strategy. Because the enemy expects your worship to stop when the fight gets hard. And when it does not stop, something shifts in the spiritual atmosphere. The worship declares that God is worthy regardless of circumstances. And that declaration has a power in the spirit realm that circumstantially dependent praise does not have. Worship in the fight, beloved. It is one of the most effective partnership postures available to you. The fifth way is forgive quickly and completely. Beloved, unforgiveness is one of the primary footholds that the enemy uses to gain ground in the lives of people who are in a fight. It creates a crack in the protection that the covenant provides. And heavens fight on your behalf is most effective when the protection is intact. Forgive quickly. Not because what was done was acceptable. Because the fight you are in requires the full protection of a heart that is not giving the enemy the foothold that unforgiveness provides. Forgive as an act of warfare. Because it is won. The sixth way is stand firm when everything in you wants to retreat. Beloved, Paul wrote in Ephesians 6 that after you have done everything, stand. The standing is the partnership. The refusal to retreat in the face of what is coming against you. The choice to hold the ground that God has given you even when holding it is uncomfortable. Even when everything that the enemy is throwing against you is designed to make you move. Stand. Not in your own strength. In the strength of the God who is fighting with you. Because the enemy's strategy is always ultimately dependent on your retreat. And the person who refuses to retreat is the person whose standing enforces in the natural what heaven is doing in the spirit. And the seventh way is trust the fight to the one who is fighting it. Beloved, the most important way you can partner with what heaven is doing on your behalf is to trust it to God. Not to take it back into your own hands every time the natural circumstances seem to argue against what heaven is doing. Not to stop believing the fight is happening just because you cannot see it. Not to conclude that God has stopped fighting because the visible evidence of the fight is not immediately apparent. Trust the fight. Trust the one who is fighting. And rest in the knowledge that the God who is fighting for you has never lost a fight that he committed himself to. And he committed himself to yours before you were born. Trust it, beloved. The fight is being won. 7 declarations for the one whose heaven is fighting for. Beloved, I want to close this message by speaking 7 declarations directly over your life. Over the fight that heaven has been engaged in. Over what has been fought against and what has been fought for. And over the person who is now going forward knowing they have never been alone in the fight. Receive each one as a word from heaven establishing in your natural life what has always been true in the spirit realm. Declaration 1. I declare that heaven has been fighting for me. Throughout every season. In every chapter. In the moments when I felt most alone in what I was carrying. Heaven was fighting. The attacks that did not reach me. The near misses. The sudden provisions. The unexpected strengths. The inexplicable recoveries. The people who arrived at the right moment. All of it was the fight. And I receive the knowledge of it with the gratitude it deserves. Declaration 2. I declare that I am not alone in this fight. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not in any season that is still ahead. The God who assigned angels to my life and who sends Michael to fight on behalf of his people has assigned the fight for my life to forces that are greater than anything that comes against me. I am not alone. I have never been alone. And I will never be alone. Declaration 3. I declare that what heaven has been fighting against has not succeeded. Not ultimately. Not permanently. The attacks against my identity did not erase who God says I am. The attacks against my faith did not extinguish what God lit in me. The attacks against my relationships did not permanently sever what God joined. The attacks against my health did not overcome the healing that God is working. The attacks against my calling did not cancel what God decreed. Every attack failed, because heaven was fighting against it. Declaration 4. I declare that what heaven has been fighting for is mine. The destiny, the faith, the joy, the peace, the relationships, the healing, me. All of it has been fought for by a heaven that never stopped engaging on my behalf. And all of it is still available. Still being worked toward. Still being protected. Still being developed. And I receive it all, with the gratitude of someone who finally understands what has been happening on their behalf all along. Declaration 5. I declare that I am partnering with the fight from this day forward. Through prayer. Through declaration. Through worship in the middle of the difficulty. Through generosity as an act of trust. Through forgiveness as an act of warfare. Through the refusal to retreat. Through the trust that releases the fight to the one who is fighting it. I am in this fight. Actively. Intentionally. Alongside the heaven that has been in it all along. Declaration 6. I declare that the fight that heaven has been engaged in on my behalf is producing a victory that is going to be visible in my natural life. The enemy's strategies are failing. The attacks are being defeated. The weapons are not prospering. And what emerges from the fought-over life I am living is going to be one of the most powerful testimonies of the faithfulness of God that anyone in my sphere has ever witnessed. Declaration 7. I declare that the God who has been fighting for me is worthy of my complete and total trust. He has been engaged in this fight longer than I have been aware of it. He has been winning battles I did not know were being fought. He has been protecting things I did not know were in danger. He has been providing in ways I did not fully recognize as provision. He has been present in the fight in every form available to him. And he has not once abandoned the fight or the person the fight is for. I trust him. Completely. With the full weight of everything I am and everything I am walking through. Because the one who is fighting for me has never lost. And he is not starting now. God bless you, beloved. Until next time. The closing word from Archangel Michael. Beloved, as we close today, I want to release the final word that heaven sent with this message. He says, beloved, I want you to go from this message knowing something that changes everything. You have never been alone in the fight. Not for one moment. Not in the darkest season. Not in the longest waiting. Not in the most difficult chapter. Not in the moments when you felt most abandoned by everything and everyone. You were not alone. Heaven was there. Engaged. Fighting. On your behalf. Because God sent the fight to be fought on behalf of the person he loves. And you are that person. He says, beloved, go forward differently than you came into this message. Not as someone who is fighting alone and hoping that God might occasionally intervene. As someone who knows that the fight has always been a shared one. That the weight has always been carried by more than your own strength. That the victories that have been won along the way were won by forces greater than your own. And that the fight that is still ahead of you is going to be fought by those same forces. With the same commitment. With the same authority. With the same love for the person the fight is for. You, beloved. Heaven fights for you. It always has. And it always will. God bless you. Until next time. And please share this message with someone who has been feeling alone in their fight. Your share might be the word that reminds them that they never were. God bless you, beloved. And before you go, would you seal this declaration with a seed? $5 or 10 or 25 or 50 or 100. Whatever is in your hand right now. Scan the QR code on your screen or use the link in the description below. And as you give, say out loud, "Heaven fights for me and I am not alone." That declaration, beloved, is the most powerful thing you can say as you seal this word. God bless you, beloved. Until next time. 7 times in Scripture when heaven visibly fought for God's people. Beloved, I want to show you 7 moments in Scripture when the fight that heaven is always engaged in on behalf of God's people became visible in the natural realm. Because what is usually invisible was sometimes made visible so that the people of God would know what was always happening on their behalf. The first is when the angel of the Lord fought for Israel at the Red Sea. The Egyptians were pursuing Israel, and the pillar of cloud moved from in front of Israel and stood behind them, creating darkness between the Egyptians and Israel. And throughout the night the angel of God kept the armies apart. The angel was fighting on behalf of Israel, keeping what was coming against them from reaching them through the night. Until the sea parted and Israel crossed on dry ground and the Egyptians were overthrown. Heaven fought visibly between the people of God and the army that was coming against them. The second is when the angel of the Lord fought for Elisha and his servant. Elisha's servant woke up to find the city surrounded by an army with horses and chariots. He cried out, "What shall we do?" And Elisha said, "Do not be afraid. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed, "Lord, open his eyes so he may see." And the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. The fight was always happening. The servant just needed his eyes open to see it. Heaven was outnumbering the enemy that surrounded them. The same is true for you, beloved. The forces fighting for you are greater than the forces that come against you. The third is when the angel fought for Jerusalem in the time of Hezekiah. The Assyrian army under Sennacherib had surrounded Jerusalem. The situation seemed impossible from every natural angle. And Hezekiah prayed. And Isaiah sent word. The Lord says, the king of Assyria will not enter this city. He will not shoot an arrow here or come before it with a shield. I will defend this city. And that night the angel of the Lord went out and put to death 185,000 in the Assyrian camp. And when the people got up in the morning, there were all the dead bodies. One angel. One night. 185,000 defeated. Heaven fights when God's people pray and trust. The fourth is when the angel fought for Daniel in the lion's den. Daniel was thrown into the den of lions. The stone was placed over the entrance. Sealed. And in the morning the king went in anguish to the den and called out, Daniel, has your God whom you serve continually been able to rescue you from the lions? And Daniel answered, my God sent his angel and he shut the mouths of the lions. An angel was in the den with Daniel, not watching Daniel from a safe distance. In the den, shutting the mouths of every lion. Heaven fights in the den with the people who are thrown into it. The fifth is when the angel fought for Peter in prison. Peter was chained between two soldiers, scheduled for execution. The church was praying. And suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared and a light shone in the cell, and he struck Peter on the side and woke him up. "Quick, get up," he said. And the chains fell off Peter's wrists. The angel fought the chains. He fought the doors. He led Peter through the first guard and the second and the iron gate that opened by itself. Heaven fought its way through every obstacle between Peter and his freedom. Because heaven fights for the people of God when they are imprisoned by what was never supposed to hold them. The sixth is when angels fought alongside the disciples in the early church. After Pentecost, the apostles were arrested and put in jail. But during the night an angel of the Lord opened the doors of the jail and brought them out. "Go stand in the temple courts," he said, "and tell the people all about this new life." Heaven fought the prison doors so that the gospel could continue to go out. The message was more important than the comfort of the messengers. And heaven fought to ensure the message kept moving by fighting for the freedom of the people who were carrying it. Heaven fights for the mission by fighting for the people who carry it. And the seventh is the fight that heaven is engaged in for you right now. Beloved, I want to name your fight in this list. Because what heaven has been doing on your behalf is as real as every visible fight I just described. The same God who sent the angel to the Red Sea and opened Elisha's servant's eyes to the horses and chariots of fire and dispatched the angel to put down the Assyrian army and shut the mouths of the lions and broke Peter's chains and opened the prison doors of the early church apostles is the same God who has been sending the fight on your behalf throughout every season of your life. The same authority. The same commitment. The same love for the person the fight is for. The fight has been happening, beloved. And it has never stopped. And it will not stop until the day you step into the fullness of everything that was always being fought for on your behalf. Heaven has been fighting for you. It is fighting for you right now. And the outcome of the fight is already determined. Because the one who fights for you has never once lost. And he is not about to start. God bless you, beloved. Until next time.